One of the words that we use a lot around the high holidays is the word awe. In Hebrew, Yirah. It's from the root Yud Resh Aleph. It's a word that can mean fear, but what I'd like to do is to show you a number of examples in which maybe the definition awe isn't even sufficient. What I feel what it really is an act of reverence that is felt so holy that it's born out of really deep connection. I'm going to show you 3 examples of where that plays out and how it plays out. So if you recall in the book of Exodus, the Pharaoh decides that the Israelites are growing too numerous and their children should no longer be allowed to live, especially their sons. And so he says to the midwives, when they see that it's a boy that's being born, they need to kill the infant boy. And the midwives disagree with this and they don't follow through. And it says in the text, "Vatir'ena hameyadot et Elohim, v'lo asu kasher diber aleihan melech Mitzrayim, v'tichyena et hayeladim." And the midwives feared God, and they didn't do according to what Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, had told them to do. Now, when you think about it, fear. Who did they fear? They likely feared Pharaoh, but that's not what the text says. The text says that they feared God. And what I'd like to suggest here, that it wasn't fear of God. It wasn't even necessarily awe of God. What it is a reverence of the Israelite God that was so significant that they felt a very deep connection to it. They felt their role as midwives deeply connected to the idea of that this God is a life-giving God. I'll prove it with a second text. In the book of Leviticus, it says, "Ish imo v'aviv tirau." A person should fear their mother and their father. But once again, when we speak about one's parents, is it really an issue of fear? Is that what we're looking for? Potentially, one could say in the time of the Bible that yes, but what I really want to drive home is that it's an act of reverence. We revere our parents because we feel such a deep connection to them. Our connection can enable us to raise them up, to hold them in high esteem, to revere them for the gifts that they've given to us. The third text I'm going to bring you is from Maimonides, the Rambam. He wrote in the Mishnah Torah, which is an important book of Jewish legal text. And what he writes there is that we have 2 ways that we relate to God. One is out of Ahava and the other is out of Yirah. And both of them we're commanded to do. Ahava is love. We should love God deeply. And the other is Yirah. We should be in awe of God. We should fear God. And how do you know when and how do you do that? He gives an example. And what's the way that we show love of God? Ve'yirato, and awe or fear of God. At the moment where you see God's works. Ve'roav haniflaim hagdolim, and the great, majestic products that God has delivered into the world. Then you know that as you feel a connection to them, that you will love God and you will fear God, is what it says. But I want to make that case once again, that when you see amazing works, when you stand at the edge of the Grand Canyon, when you see a beautiful bird soaring in the sky, that you're not necessarily fearing God. What you're showing is tremendous reverence of God because you have a deep connection, because your connection says that you see the beauty that's around you. So I hope as we enter into the holidays that we don't need to approach them with a significant fear of what's ahead, but rather we can approach them with trying to identify where do we see deep connection with the world around us, with what God has given to us in this world, and that as we see that deep connection, we can hold it in great reverence and treat it as such. Shana Tova.